Okay, that being said, good afternoon all. It's September 9th. We are here at a tabled and rescheduled meeting of the Board of Commissioners from Tuesday following a holiday weekend. It is 1:03 and I'll get this meeting going for us. Let's see, pull up the agenda and I'll ask for an approval of our agenda today. We have 10 items that have been posted as of, I believe, Wednesday morning. I can put those in the chat as long as there are no other changes or comments from my fellow commissioners. I do not have any changes or requests on the 10 items.
None for me, thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, no changes for me. All looks good.
Okay, I will get that then here in the chat if I can fit it all. Give me just a second. Okay, I'm just going to put in our new business items so that I'm sure to get it all, fit it all in there. Okay. All right, next on the agenda, I have community informational items. Commissioner Marcella, do you have anything for us?
Not right now, not at this time. Thank you very much.
Okay, Commissioner Fiedler?
None for me. We have a super packed agenda. Let's just dive in with the new business.
Okay, sounds good. I quickly just reiterate a Forest Health Council meeting on Monday and continued wildfire planning work and following community meetings to come in the next couple of months. All right, moving on to commissioner clarifications. I have none.
None for me, thank you.
None for me.
All right, and then public comments on items not on the agenda. If you have a public comment to share, I ask that you raise your hand and or put on your video if you're having a challenge navigating the hand raising, or throw your desire to speak in the comment and the chat box along with your name and address. You have 3 minutes. I'm not seeing anyone raising their hand or indicating a desire to speak on items not on the agenda. I'll give it just a couple more seconds here. Is there anybody who has a comment, a public comment on items that are not on our agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on then. All right, so we'll move into new business. And again, I put those items in our chat here. If you are new to the meeting, or perhaps if anybody can help me repost this if there are additional participants, and I think I just seen that we do have new ones because new participants cannot see. Hold on a second. All right, we'll move into the first item on the agenda, which is the contract with Bruce Brown for consulting services with the Lake County Sheriff's Office. Our attorney, Chris Floyd, I think has been in some conversation on this. The commissioners do have this contract that we're asked to consider. I have a couple of questions for you, Chris, but I'll let you go ahead and give us an overview if you can.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So this contract is presented at the request of the Lake County Sheriff's Office to engage the services of attorney Bruce Brown to provide education of post-certified personnel, as well as consultation on pending criminal investigations and certain special assignments. As noted, it is an engagement of him as an attorney And as a result, it was not required to go through any type of bid process or whatever. The sheriff's office did follow the new procurement purchasing policy in terms of the overall value of the contract, if you will, and the type of services to be used. And it was presented to me for review, and it was reviewed, and I negotiated revisions with Mr. Brown. He accepted all of the revisions requested, which is rare, not only for a contract, but also for another attorney. But anyway, so he has presented a signed version of the contract accepting all the terms, and we did use the county's standard professional services agreement for that. So, at this point in time, I'm happy to answer any questions. I was looking at who's here. I was kind of hopeful that perhaps someone with the sheriff's office would be in attendance. So if you had more specific questions about the services or what they discussed, I wasn't privy to any of the discussions with him before the contract was presented as to the scope of his services. I just know what is appended into the contract as the scope of services, which I mentioned at the outset there in terms of the type of work he's going to do.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Yeah, unfortunately, I know Sheriff Reyes was at our meeting on Tuesday, and having punted the entire agenda basically to this meeting, she did indicate that she wasn't able to join us to ask any questions. I am definitely supportive of the assistance and getting the training. And I did have some questions on that procurement aspect, but as legal, I suppose that him being attorney representative and providing that training, that answers some of my questions there. I did have a question about negotiating that costs and travel costs, and also wondering about terms, because there is no ceiling, or there's an estimated 50 hours of work that is needed for what the current demand is. And I just wondered if we,
I don't know if there's anything beyond that 50 hours at this point in time. And so it's, I think to the extent that additional services would be needed outside the scope of the services, then the sheriff's office would probably come back for an amended scope of services to be approved for that, if you will. But unfortunately, I wasn't involved in the conversations as to the specifics on the services, so I don't have additional information for you on that.
Commissioners, any questions for Chris or on the contract?
None from me. Thank you. I did just want to make mention that I did reach out to Sheriff Reyes about kind of the specifics of that, to make sure that what the work is that he is going to explicitly be doing. And he's not a law enforcement post-certified official, so he will be there to assist her with getting her deputies up to par to where they need to be in terms of case reviews and detail and what is needed and follow up in those cases. So I just wanted to put that out there, that I did connect with her to ask her some of those specifics.
Okay.
I just quickly say, I mean, you also channeling what Sheriff Reyes did say on Tuesday, that they are seeing higher caseload and they're short-staffed. So, I mean, to me, I agree. This seems like a necessary and service. I wanted to follow up, Commissioner Mudge, on your point. I mean, I think I'm comfortable starting this, but I do think as general practice, it'd be good to have, like some actual cap on the total expenditure of a contract. I think we've asked that before on other contracts, and or at least a provision like, that you need sort of written, mutual agreement on any, increase, something like that. So I wonder if we could sort of start this as is, because I think it's a fairly urgent need in the sheriff's office, but maybe circle back and see if we can do a quick amendment. as it
Okay.
as it rolls in. Again, I don't want to delay it. It says, you know, already delayed it from Tuesday, and I think it is something that is pretty urgent.
Yeah, and I imagine HR is gonna kind of have some interaction or at least understanding of how well and how, you know, how this training, working with the sheriff, how the training's benefiting and able to really improve their workload and or how they are treating and able to address the workload. So
The one thing I
Right.
would offer as well is that the way the contract and scope of services are written, I don't think there's anything wrong if you approve this to essentially approve the contract and inform the sheriff's office it's been approved for the initial 50 hours. And therefore, if it extends beyond the 50 hours that have been estimated, that you would like to have an amended scope of work to describe what the additional services are for, perhaps presented for approval as well. So you could approach it that way.
okay, I like that.
Yep, that sounds good.
All right, if there's no other further questions, I'm happy to craft a motion or entertain a motion, perhaps including that scope or that 50 hour approval. Commissioner Marcella?
Oh, no, that's okay. Sorry, I don't know how to frame that.
Sure.
I will, go ahead, sorry.
Just gonna say, I think you can just do, I think you can just say, you know, in your motion to approve that you're moving to approve the contract for the initial estimated 50 hours.
I will make a motion that we approve the contract with Bruce Brown for consulting services with Lake County Sheriff's Office with the initial scope of 50 hours.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion?
None from me, thank you.
Great.
None for me.
Nothing from me either. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Moving on to item 2, we have human resources compliance training bids and recommendations. Commissioner Fiedler, is this something that you want to
Yeah.
quickly?
Oh,
Jeff, do you want me to share my screen?
do you have it up? I have it up too, but if you're ready to go, then go for it.
Sure. Here, this is the proposal and the bids for staff.
Yeah, and I can just stop, and I think it's fairly straightforward. This is compliance training that the human resources lead went out and obtained 3 separate bids from qualified vendors, and has made a recommendation for Lexipol here was both the most cost efficient solution, but also was reviewed the services they provide and the different trainings that they have available to us, and it meets our needs the best as well. So sort of clear recommendation to go with Lexipol for the various compliance training needs.
I just think too, it's important to kind of understand that, you know, the job or the perspective from human resources is also to do some risk management and mitigation with personnel. And so these trainings are really critical for our staff, and not only to keep up with compliance, but to provide a safe and welcoming work environment.
Very good.
Yeah.
I don't have any questions on this.
Commissioners, I was just going to chime in too, in terms of the compliance issues too. Federal law requires certain levels of training to be done in order for the county to have access to safe harbor defenses in relation to certain claims. So I've spoken with Hannah about this proposal and such, and I definitely believe it's something that the county should consider investing in.
Yeah. Oh, and sorry, I should also add on behalf of Hannah Wall, who apologized for not being able to make today's rescheduled meeting. But this is able to be covered within the current year's budget. So not requesting additional funds from the general fund or elsewhere.
And sorry, what was the recommended Lexipol, did you say?
Lexipol, it's the bid that came in as the lowest amount and also was the one that was preferred in terms of meeting our training needs.
All right.
Cool. I will make a motion that we approve the bid with Lexipol for Human Resources Compliance Training.
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion?
None from me, thank you.
All right,
None for me.
okay, great. All those in favor? Aye.
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 All right, very good. Now on 3 and 4 are typically kind of squashed together here, but 3 is our official action record presentation from land use on our file that was heard in a joint hearing with the Planning Commission and the board in August. And so Paul Clarkson, would you present that summary for the Richard Murphy request for rezone from industrial mining to what do we have? RC. Is it RC or UR? I'm sorry. In our resolution for 2021-18.
Oh,
You're muted,
okay.
Paul.
I'm now using my iPhone, which I'm not very comfortable with because I'm just learning how to do it as well. I walked
Understood.
off
No problem.
walked off the end of the pier, and I'm so as you had said, this meeting, joint meeting with the board and the Planning Commission was held October 9th. Oh no, August 9th. And has been tabled for a couple of meetings. And so we're here now concerning an application to rezone a 17-acre parcel within the IM zone district to recreational, which is just a word. It doesn't mean that you can build an amusement park in this zone district. It's typically recreational, turns out to be lower density residential. Minimum size is usually is 3 acres for the RC zone district. I can say that this application to change the zoning from IM to RC was a difficult application for the Planning Commission. And it was not a unanimous vote to approve the zoning. I think it failed, or it passed by a 4-to-1 vote. And a couple of those positive votes had a very difficult time in deciding where to fall. And the staff report does recommend approval, but it's one of those things that, you know, we're on a fence, and we figure that we've got to fall one way or the other. And so far the Planning Commission and I have fallen towards approving the zone change. There was much discussion during that Planning Commission meeting concerning future land use of the gravel pit that was that's been historically been there, but it's not been very intensively used, and it does not yet have a conditional use permit from the county, nor a mine land reclamation board permit. So there's a couple of hoops that have to be jumped through. I think the other part of the problem is the fact that that perhaps these parcels that are applying for rezoning probably shouldn't have been sold in the first place to somebody that didn't know that the zoning was industrial mining, and you can't build a house on an industrially mined zone district. So, as another point is that the zoning has been in place since the county adopted zoning in 1976. The platting didn't actually occur, I think, until 1982. The O'Neill family and their descendants all have an interest in the area, but there are at least 2 property owners in this zone district that are not part of the O'Neill family and descendants, and that there are also some probate issues going on amongst the O'Neill family. So we don't know when a future gravel pit will occur. There is enough land area left over to be able in the IM zone district in order to be able to have a gravel pit. But the concern by the O'Neill family is that they're going to get complaints potentially from adjacent property owners that have houses nearby. And with that, I might say that Mr. Murphy is well aware that there's going to be a gravel pit there. And I'd also have to say there's a house currently being built on an RC zone parcel that is exactly adjacent to this gravel pit. So I think everybody is just sort of pretty torn about how to handle this. Again, staff and the Planning Commission both recommended approval, but I'd have to qualify that by saying it wasn't an enthusiastic approval. I think, do you have any questions for me?
I think I have some comments that I just kind of like to reiterate, having been traveling at that time and then listening through the hearing myself. I do, as you said, it was well acknowledged, the difference of this overarching challenge that we are facing outside of what should be applied for the consideration of the application in terms of the sale of parcels and the bundle of rights that is being conveyed, perhaps, or not conveyed to folks who are purchasing properties. I think we're seeing that in a lot of on a lot of mining claims. So that's one thing that I think as a board and a county and across a few departments here, we definitely need to. I know we're trying to combat that a bit, and I also think that there are other aspects of that that we should probably get a good handle on, what the position or goal or priority of the county might be. Uh-oh. I'm gonna mute you down there, Paul.
I think if you want to mute both of them, that would be good. I don't know which one is providing the feedback.
Okay. I think okay. So again, just an overview on some challenges highlighted through recent transfer of deeds and sales that don't necessarily apply to the application. I think some of my first couple thoughts, and I think it was addressed in the hearing that I heard, was why don't we look to all the other adjacent owners in this kind of anomaly of this donut hole of zoning and see if everybody just wants to rezone so that we have a contiguous zoned area in that particular location, and kind of be done with this problem. I think I understood, Paul, please correct me if I'm wrong, that it seemed like about half of the parcels there you suspect may also come to us for rezoning for residential use. And then the other half, as Mr. Josh O'Neill did, was it Josh O'Neill that did provide public comment in the hearing, intends to pursue permitting with DRMS, the Division of Reclamation, Mine and Safety, at the state, and then would have to go through conditional use permitting to start a gravel pit in that area, in that zone.
That all
right?
depends upon the status of the probate and how they get through all of that.
Right. Right.
I don't think he's capable, has enough ownership in the parcels that are relevant to him to be able to proceed with that at this point. But that's going to get settled someday. And like I said, that zoning has been there since before the platting.
Yeah. And I think to that point, oh, sorry, go ahead.
All of the all of the adjacents within 500 feet of the property line have in fact been notified. It may be that some of them are even here today. I'm not sure I can see that that's the case, but they all have been notified pursuant to code within 500 feet of the outer, within 500 feet of the property.
Of course.
And then there are like 8 parcels total in the in this particular zone district. Murphy's have applied for a rezone, and then there is one other on the west side of County Road 30.
Okay. And then my other comment was just going to be, as I thought, well articulated by a planning commissioner, you know, we can speculate on future land use in the adjacent areas or adjacent parcels. And right now we have a clear request on an application, and that's, in my opinion, I share that opinion that probably is what we need to be considering here. Yeah, I'll stop there. I'm sorry. Commissioner Fiedler, do you want to add something there? Popping back on video.
Oh, I was just, I had finished eating my lunch, so I came back on video.
Oh.
I can make some comments, or I can wait. I don't know if we want to put a motion on the table and then have a discussion, or take your guidance on whether I should start chiming in, or if you want to get a motion going.
I think before we get a motion going, I just want to make a comment, just for full disclosure and transparency, that Mr. O'Neill did contact me and asked to discuss his public comment in the public hearing. I did notify him at that time that I was unable to discuss the pending application, and that if I was to discuss the pending application, I would need to recuse myself, as it would be considered ex parte communication. At that point, he respectfully said, "Wonderful, I understand. Thank you for your time. Have a great day." And that was the end of our discussion. So I just want to put that out there for transparency's sake, that you know, he did attempt to contact me, but I did not have any discussion with him regarding the pending application or future land use in this particular area before you make a motion, or anybody makes a motion.
Thanks, Commissioner Marcella, and I haven't had any ex parte communications on the topic either. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, and I'll just chime in. I have not had any discussion with the applicant or, you know, any community member, stakeholder.
Happy to entertain a motion. Hearing no other comment to your question, Commissioner Fiedler, from Commissioner Marcella.
I can make a motion that we approve resolution 2021-18, which is a resolution to rezone the property known as Parcel 10, Tract 15, EE Hill Estates, addressed as 261 Kansier Drive, and the rezoning request is from industrial to recreational, and I might need a little assistance I don't know if recreational is the full title of that zone district.
It is.
Okay, thank you. And I think the motion is good, as I said it.
I will second.
Would you like that motion read into the record? Or that resolution read into the record?
Yes, that would be great, Paul.
Okay, this is resolution 21-18, a resolution to rezone the property known as Parcel 10, Tract 15, E.E. Hill Estates, addressed as 261 Kansier Drive, from IM mining to recreational to RC recreational. Whereas the Board of County Commissioners of the County of Lake, State of Colorado, the board, is vested with administering the affairs of Lake County, Colorado pursuant to state statutes. And whereas pursuant to CRS 2920-102, paragraph 1, the legislature has determined that in order to provide for a planned and orderly development within Colorado, that broad authority must be provided to local governments, including counties, to plan for and regulate the use of land within their respective jurisdictions. And whereas pursuant to CRS 3028-111, paragraph 1, the legislature has determined local county governments may make a zoning plan for zoning all of or any part of unincorporated territory within such county. And whereas the county is in receipt of a land use and development application, file number 21-15, proposing the rezoning of a 17.5 acre parcel legally described as Parcel 10, Tract 15, E.E. Hill Estates, and addressed as 261 Kansier Drive from IM industrial zoning to RC recreation. That's IM industrial mining to RC recreational. And whereas said parcels currently platted as Parcel 10, Tract 15 is proposed for rezoning to RC in order to use the parcel consistent with the RC zoning. And whereas there is no companion file or subdivision proposed with this rezoning, as the property is already legally platted as part of the E.E. Hill Estates subdivision. And whereas the Lake County Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners held a joint public meeting on this matter on the 9th day of August, 2021. And whereas the Board of County Commissioner has considered the recommendations of the Lake County Building and Land Use Department and the Planning Commission. And now therefore be it resolved by the County Commissioners of Lake County and the State of Colorado that pursuant to section 3.13.3 of the Lake County Land Development, section 1, the proposed rezoning is found to be consistent with and in compliance with all parts of the Lake County Comprehensive Plan. Section 2, that the proposed rezoning bears a reasonable relationship to the welfare of the community, and there has been a change in the conditions of the neighborhood that supports the requested zoning. Section 3, this resolution shall become effective upon the signing of the board of this resolution and the subsequent recording of it.
Thank you, Paul. Commissioner Fiedler?
Yeah, so I just wanted to sort of chime in on my thinking on this, and I appreciate all the comments and background so far. I guess as I've been wrestling with this one, I am concerned about sort of encroaching on the IM zone here and the potential for a gravel pit. And I will say, to me, that like RC, and residential rezoning, it's not anything against that use of that part of the county because it's adjacent to it. But I am just concerned about encroaching on IM, and just thinking about, we know in the recent past it's been incredibly hard to site and permit a gravel pit elsewhere in the county, and I just think that to some extent that IM zone is there for a reason, and I think we need to think about the benefit to the county and to the community about having sort of building material resource available and not having to truck it in pretty extensive distances from neighboring counties if we were to run short of that building resource here. I also think there's potentially like a county interest in that commercial activity and the revenue from that. But I mean, I think the primary one for me is just the broader welfare of the community and having the building resource here locally. And I know I take the point that we need to like constrain our thinking to the application at hand, but I do think we sort of risk setting a bit of an implicit precedent with those other parcels coming in, and we're just going to keep encroaching on this IM parcel and create a conflict between residential and a future gravel pit, or reduce, you know, the value of that potential future commercial activity. So again, I appreciate like that, you know, that this is not a clear one way or the other. And again, I want to say it's nothing against the residential use there. I just don't feel like I just think we need to, here we really do need to look at the bigger picture of maintaining the integrity and the potential of that site, and the value of the building material in that commercial activity.
I think,
Oh my God.
I think my question for staff is, at this point, whether this rezone truly does fit with to be within compliance of the Lake County Comprehensive Plan, because I don't feel like rezoning this parcel is in harmony with the parcel surrounding it. To have IM on 3 sides of this one piece of recreational property, to me feels inappropriate. But I would defer to staff to answer that question, because I think when we were reviewing, at least Paul and I discussing through the comprehensive plan, the piece that really stood out to me, that the proposed rezoning bears a reasonable relationship to the welfare of the community, and that there has been a change in the conditions of the neighborhood that supports the requested rezoning. I don't know if you can guide me through what that means, or help me understand better what that piece means under approval criteria, Paul.
Yeah, that's an interesting conundrum, and it actually isn't a conundrum. It's part and parcel of a finding that this doesn't comply with the Lake County Comprehensive Plan. If it doesn't, if you find that it is inconsistent with or not in compliance with all of the parts of the Lake County Comprehensive Plan, the application for the proposed rezoning must show either that an error was made in establishing the zoning or its application to a specific lot, tract, or parcel, or that the proposed zoning bears a reasonable relationship to the welfare of the community, and that there has been a change in the conditions of the neighborhood that supports the requested rezoning. So you have a circumstance in which, if you find compliance with the master plan, you don't even have to consider those Roman numeral 1 or Roman numeral 2, because the 2 findings that you have to be made is consistency with the master plan, or effectively not. And if you find that it's consistent with the master plan, then you really must find that that the zoning should be approved. So I might actually expound a little bit more upon the future land use plan.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that, because I think that's identified to encourage residential development in this area. But
well,
yes,
I think what really is important is that the FLUP, the future land use plan, identifies this IM zoned area as developed residential, which it quite obviously is not developed residential. That's a problem that is part and parcel of a small scale map trying to identify large scale uses. And also we have found some errors in the future land use map in the past that don't quite fit. The surrounding area, the E.E. Hill Estate, is also classified as rural and remote, which we don't necessarily agree it is that either. Rural and remote is, and I quote from the plan, several hundred mining claims and private parcels located in the backcountry well beyond the paved road network. Unquote. The comp plan really doesn't have a land use classification that fits between developed residential and rural and remote. This is most closely resembles what staff interprets that this area most closely resembles residential infill, which can be described, which is a classification in the future land use map, which can be described as medium to large lot residential, which is very much the intent of E.E. Hill Estates. The future land use plan also doesn't have an industrial mining type of future land use plan designation either. Staff might suggest that this is how this particular IM zoned area got to be shown as developed residential. They simply didn't have an adequate descriptor for that particular area. We usually identify IM as what is the East Side Mining District, which is classified as recreation and mining resource. And that's by the future land use plan. I rather doubt that this site can be classified as that. So I suggest that the future land use plan is not much help in our case here. Insofar as this zoning has been in place since the adoption of zoning, I might venture to say that it effectively trumps the comprehensive plan.
I think it's also worth mentioning again that I don't believe that a change in the rezone here would prohibit the permitting of mining in the surrounding areas to an appropriate extent, that activity would be pursued in terms of mining. We have existing gravel pits that are quarter-mile or less in proximity to homes out at Half Moon and Stringtown, even further south. I just offer that as a point of consideration.
I might say, Sarah, that your point is well taken. And along those very same lines, somebody is going to be next to it.
Somebody is going to be next to it. Yeah. And I do struggle because of, other areas where there is the conflicting residential, and we do have an active permit that is looking to expand use that could be in conflict with the surrounding area. I'm definitely don't want to exacerbate that issue here, but I don't think that there's, without that activity existing, and really just we're speculating that that's going to happen and be permitted. I don't know. I'm not sure I'm convinced I could make that correlation with a lot of certainty.
Yeah, I totally hear you. I mean, like there's a lot of conjecture in terms of what could happen. I will say, I think I maybe glossed over it too quickly, but I know we don't sort of have like formal legal precedents being set here, but I think there is like an implicit sort of precedent that we're okay with continuing to chip away at the IM zone. So I think it's not, I think we do need to sort of add into the conjectures, that there are going to be additional chips taken out of that IM area, and that this won't, yeah, I mean, just that point. And again, you know, it's hard to say like what parcels have to remain a viable opportunity for a gravel pit. And with things wrapped up in probate and like different ownership there, it's squirrely for sure. But I do like, I mean, just to think it would be, to me, it would be hard to decline a future adjacent rezone request. You know, like on what basis could we approve this one and decline the next parcel over? Which makes me hesitant to take the first step until, I don't know, and until we really revisit like what we think about that future land use map, or, you know, what we think about the IM zone in this region, in this, you know, this area of the county. I don't know, that's part of what's swirling in my brain on this one.
Paul, remind me, did we get other public comment other than the one in the hearing?
Offhand, I don't recall. I think that what I need to do is to sort of scan the minutes of that meeting, which have not yet been approved by the Planning Commission.
I mean, nothing was read into the record in that hearing, and there was one, I think there was one public comment.
Yes, I believe that's true. I wonder if I might be able to share my screen.
Sure, you should be able to.
Okay. Let's see. Here's the one that I want to share. Do you see this?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to trace from the upper right hand. You see my arrow?
I do. We do.
Okay. From this point, I'm going to trace out the entire IM zone district. And that's coming south and then heading west across Lost Canyon Road. And then again north to the Gaff Placer, and then following the south property line of the Gaff Placer back to the point of beginning. And here you can see where that something of a gravel pit is. I can say that some gravel looks like it's been taken out of there, but it may have been many, many, many years ago. And there's a couple of pieces of rusting equipment there as well. The road, as you can see, for the gravel pit comes along here and then out onto the highway. Mr. Murphy's parcel is this one. No, it's not. It's this one. This is the 17-acre parcel. This parcel over here on the other side of Lost Canyon Road has also applied for a zone change. I think the circumstances over there might be a little bit different enough that can be considered. But you should also know that this parcel here is owned by, I believe it's Dennis O'Neill's brother, George Safkin. I did receive a call from the Safkin family a couple of months ago about wanting to consider that parcel to be changed as well. So the circumstances that we're looking at here would most certainly also exist here. And what we have left here is this parcel, a 13-acre parcel, this parcel here, which is a 11-acre parcel, and then this one, which is another 11 acres, which is what would ultimately be left if both zoning applications are approved. And then this parcel will remain IM, and then this parcel will remain IM. Did I over-explain that, or did you already understand that? I just thought I'd
No, I think that's great to know that.
Okay. I don't need to share. I'm going to stop sharing unless you don't want me to.
That's fine, I think.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mudge, we have that question in the chat from Mayor Lobby.
Yeah, and this is, oh, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I was gonna say, sorry, I did respond and didn't realize I responded just to the mayor to advise that unfortunately the public hearing portion of this was closed at the joint Planning Commission BOCC meeting before, and therefore this isn't noticed as a public hearing, and therefore you can't take public comment on it at this time. Sorry.
Thank you, Chris. I mean, yeah, nothing new, but I think I'd offer that I do agree, Commissioner Fiedler, the comprehensive overview of how and why and when we would want to really look at areas of encouraging any kind of consideration of rezoning for beneficial use, particularly are an IM. I think they are very limited areas that in my mind really fall outside of the city boundaries and the periphery, and would correspond with encouraging development in parkville and sanitation districts where infrastructure is already existent. And here, yeah, I think this is just a weird anomaly, and it's definitely gotten a lot of residential building interest. I don't know that there are any homes, Paul, do you know, that are built out there that are not captured by the current imagery we have accessible?
Yes, I can tell you that EE Hill Estates is receiving a lot of activity lately. Most of the homes that are shown on that map, which I could bring up again, are not actually on that map, but I can probably point to where homes have been permitted and are being built.
I'd like to see that if that wouldn't take too long. I try.
You bet. Okay, let's go here. All right. The main one that I think might be of importance to you is this parcel right here, which does have a building permit, and it is in fact being built as we speak, which is pretty close. Is basically adjacent to that gravel pit. There is. Let's see, there's a permit, I believe, here.
Paul, can you point to that parcel one more time quickly, just to be sure we all, okay, thank you.
This one here?
Yep. Thanks.
And then there's another, there's going to be an application on this parcel, I'm expecting. I believe there has been one issued there. To Ray Harper. There is another one that's been issued to this particular parcel. Or is it that one? Yeah, it's this particular one. And we're getting inquiries about, and this parcel and this parcel do have homes on them. And then there's one down here. But we're getting inquiries now about all of the rest of these parcels here. This parcel up here is not part of EE Hill Estates. It is a part of the Tenderfoot Placer, nor is this parcel here part of that. But there is a house on it. And I have a number of zoning violations throughout the area.
I'll remind us, in a conditional use permit, if there is a denial, there's a 2-year window where the applicant cannot submit or resubmit an application. Is there any similar restriction with a potential denial on a rezone request?
Yes, it is the same restriction. Now,
Okay.
I can qualify that restriction on CUPs, subdivisions, rezonings, and the like. to saying that if there is new information, that new information can be considered and allowed by the board to be brought back in as a new application.
Okay. I don't think I have any other questions for you, Paul. Commissioners, do you have other questions or comments for discussion? The motion on the table.
I don't really think that I do right now.
I am all good.
Okay. I'll have a roll call then for the motion to approve the rezone request. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Nope.
Okay, we've got 2 to 1. Thank you, Paul.
I will bring you a couple of corrections of the resolution, and particularly the date of this meeting. But I'll send that off to you as soon as I get it corrected.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, and now we'll move into, let's see, item number 5, which is building permit fee waiver for the training facility.
That's mine as well.
Oh, okay.
And this building permit has already been issued. And you'll have to remind me, I did this so long ago. I think it's really only is it $402 or $606 or something like that? It's not an extensive building permit, but we've issued it, and it's being built now and being inspected. And it is a building permit basically to put a facade on the front side of those stacked shipping containers, as well as a roof elsewhere, so that firefighters can train in this facility. They had to get a building permit. They had to get a conditional use permit. And so far all are in compliance, in as much as this is a publicly, the Leadville Lake County Fire Rescue Department is a publicly supported department. That the thinking is that the fee for the building permit all comes out of the same pot.
Right.
And the only concern that I might have, that I want to warn you of, that I do say this every time we have a request for a fee waiver, is that it not only results in not getting the fee into the county's general fund, but it also means that there is an expenditure of 75% of what that fee was going to be, that we have to pay our contract building inspector and plan reviewer.
Right.
In this case, I think it's a pretty small sum.
And that fee goes into the budget and overall budget, which is again divided between our agreement with the city on overall fire department operations and capital projects. So I would tend to agree with you, Paul, that this is kind of, pulling from one pot to put it back in there.
Yeah.
But and I see, sorry, I didn't catch that Commissioner Marcella dropped off, but I do see she's reconnecting to audio. But Commissioner Fiedler, Commissioner Marcella, do you have any questions?
No, none for me. Thank you.
None for me.
All right. I'll entertain a motion then to waive fees on the training facility for the fire Leadville Lake County Fire Rescue.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion?
None for me.
None for me. Thank you.
All right. All those in favor, aye.
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 Okay. Moving on to item number 6, Flaming Foliage Special Event Permit consideration. I see Ann popping on. Ann, you want to give us a quick overview here, please?
Sure. First, I need to apologize to the board and to the applicant. This is a special event application that came in back in the spring and was fully vetted with all of the review agencies without any concern other than asking for some directional signage on County Road 10. But other than that, this is an annual running relay race that the processing fell through the cracks on. It is actually occurring this weekend. And so we didn't get any kind of concern about it. They are generally here for a short amount of time. There is some camping that's done over at the school property. But generally their exchange comes in at like 8:56 in the evening. And then they are back out of the county by, let's see, they come in that night and then they're back out by like 3:16 a.m. So they're not in the county for a real long time. We've never had any kind of incident with them. And so the review agencies are supporting approval of the event. So the permit is the form that I provided is just that they would be subject to all the information within their permit itself and the signage requirement for just alerting vehicular traffic that there would be runners on County Road 10. But other than that, there weren't any adverse comments received back. And so we are looking for approval of the special event permit for the event to be held this weekend.
Thanks, Ann. No questions from me on this. Yes, and I also share in an apology for the delay. There are a number of reasons why that happened, but any questions from my fellow commissioners? It doesn't look like it.
No, none
Okay.
for me. Thank you.
Okay. I'll entertain an approval of the special event permit for the Flaming Foliage in 2021.
Sarah, may I
Oh,
ask you
okay.
from the board if it's possible to allow to direct staff to go ahead and sign the approval so I can get it on the record today, since the event's tomorrow. So could part of the motion be to direct staff to go ahead and sign the approval and to get it recorded?
Sure, we can. I don't see a reason not to amend that. I'll entertain a motion to approve the special event permit for Flaming Foliage in 2021 and permit staff to sign the permit on behalf of the board.
So
Uh-oh.
moved. Oh.
All right, any further discussion? Oh, wait, sorry, we need a second. I will second. Any further discussion?
None for me.
Okay.
And for me, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kayla. You're breaking up a little bit. That was clear though. Just letting you know, I might ask you to repeat yourself throughout the rest of the meeting if that continues. All right, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Kayla, are you gonna unmute?
She put aye in the
I
chat.
see that. Okay, thank
That-
you,
I
Commissioner
think it
Fiedler.
counts.
Great. All right. Very good. Thanks, Ann.
Thank you.
All right, and item number 7, we have 2 requests for our ARP funds from the county. The first one listed is from SCEDD, and we have Eric here, who I believe will give us an overview. Hi, Eric, and then we will hear from Brightstart. Eric. Oh, you are muted.
COVID habit, sorry. Thank you, commissioners, for inviting me to the meeting. I'll try to be brief. The SCEDD is the 13 county regional planning entity. And about a year ago, we began discussions with DOVA, the Colorado Broadband Office, and our counterparts in Region 10 about how we could make a difference in broadband for the region. In the last 5 years, there have been 3 strategic plans drawn up in the SCEDD region, one for Upper Arkansas, one for South Central region, and one for the Southeastern Plains. And there's actually a 4th one that was geared to some specific issues in Custer County. With the exception of Custer County and a little bit of stuff in Chaffee County, most of these plans have resulted in gathering dust. And we find ourselves about 5 years behind where a lot of our counterparts are in Colorado. And the diagnosis of this from our conversations was there's a lack of managerial and technical capacity to take advantage of the federal and state money for broadband. And most of our counties in our 13 county region are rural and have not had the resources to chase funding, assemble the collaborators necessary, find match money, and to think regionally, because broadband, unlike a lot of what you do, doesn't stop and start at the county borders. Then compounding this is there's little money available at the state or federal levels to create managerial and leadership capacity that's not attached to a specific region. However, that has changed a little bit with the ARPA money that has become available. And we see a way to leverage ARPA money, DOA money, and EDA money to create a broadband coordinator position and a second technical position, and to use part of this ARPA funds to hire a full-time grant writer that would be working on our behalf to bring in money. The person that I'm currently talking with about this is someone I've known for 30 years, currently works in South Dakota for an economic development district, and for the first 8 months of the year has written $45 million worth of grants. Considering that we are completing the SCEDD process and we have quite a long wish list, this is a priority for us. And I just wanted to make it clear that the ARPA request will indirectly help pay for that, that grant position as well as broadband coordination. We have put together an ask for 13 counties in the city of Pueblo to put, in the case of the counties, 1.5% of their ARPA money into a common fund. In the case of city of Pueblo, 1% into a common fund. If we were successful in making 14 clocks chime at once, we would have just under, 1.2 million plus would be the number. The way that we would be spending that money over the next 3 years is about $300,000 would go to support the grant writer and related expenses. About $135,000 would be used to create a broadband implementation plan. That is not a strategic plan, it is an action plan. Here are the projects, here's the preliminary engineering costs. This would be creating, think of it as a SCEDDs for broadband. This would be, here are the projects that we would do. About $90,000 of this 1.2 million would be to fund the broadband coordinator position for a 6 to 9 month period before we have EDA funding in place. And the EDA funding, requires a grant application. We've been in, nothing's a sure thing when you're talking about grants, but we have been in close communication with the EDA now for 6 months about what will make a successful application. And we think that somewhere between $400,000 and $600,000 is the sweet spot that we will be able to get from the EDA. The remainder money, if we were able to get 1.2 million, the remainder money, based upon the numbers I've just expressed to you, is about $675,000. That is that money is, think of it as a seed fund. None of what we're talking about today is going to build a mile of fiber. This is about creating the capacity to chase the resources, put together the coalitions, and make it happen. If we got $1.2 million, we'd have about $675,000 in seed money that could be used for state match, and it could be used to fund that part of federal projects that are outside the grant. Basically, you cannot use ARPA money as federal match. You can use it for state match, and you can use it for things that are outside the match. Excuse me. I don't know that we're going to get $1.2 million. And we had a long discussion at our SCEDD board meeting about what's yesterday about what the go or no go point is. And we established by unanimous board action that the go no go would be to have one county in each of our 4 subregions and a total of $650,000 out of that 1.2, and that we would be chasing everybody else. So far, we only have one hard no. Everybody else is in various stages. We have one hard signed, sealed, and delivered, Chaffee County, and then we have a number that have given the informal approval, but we're waiting for. One of the questions we ask at the end of this is, how do you want to memorialize this? Do you want a resolution? Do you want a memorandum of understanding? Do you want an invoice? Do you want a handshake? And we're open to any of those. But right now, in terms of the informal approvals, if I were to include Lake County, we're up to about $624,000. The biggest amount is the Pueblo County has signaled that they are in. That's $490,000. Huerfano County is just over 20,000. You guys are just under 24,000, I believe. Chaffee County is 60,000, and Crowley County is just under $18,000. We have our biggest one. There's 2 big ones that are not yet in the fold. One of them is the city of Pueblo. We've made an ask for $364,000. The mayor is supportive of this. He's recommended it to council. I appeared before the council a few nights ago or earlier this week at a work session. And the following day, the mayor said, well, we got some work to do. So that's up in the air. And then Fremont County is our other big one. That's $139,000. And we continue to work that. I'm going to stop there. You've got a busy agenda, but I'm happy to answer questions and sort of flesh this out as you need.
Thanks so much, Eric. I think my only question to you, and/or I see Marla hopping on from the EDC, would maybe be to help highlight and remind us what that direct benefit to Lake County and where our gaps have been identified. If that's a part of, I imagine, the scope of what the work would be to address. And I think maybe a little understated, you mentioned that 3-year plan, which, having presented this to the board before, our comment and feedback on that was great appreciation in trying to collectively come up with this funding, sustained funding over 3 years to be sure that we could focus on that work, or you could focus on that work. And I think we really appreciate that approach to ask for a reasonable amount to hit the time frame, which would then result in implementation. But Marla or Eric, do you want to give us some idea of what those gaps that remain in Lake are identified as?
Eric, I can jump in here. One of the things that we started doing about, I was looking at our data just while we were on this Zoom. We started asking the public and businesses specifically to see what their speeds were up and down. And we've kind of started working with the team to put a heat map together and share it with our providers. And the broadband gaps are across the board, mainly in the county, in the southern part of the county, and also what the technical word is middle mile. So some of the subdivisions that are out in the county, in the city limits proper, there is on the outlying areas of certain streets where there is a gap, which is the middle mile too. So we've got some pretty decent data that we can share with SCEDD. And I'm excited about this person coming on board because of the grant writing that is desperately needed for the middle mile to validate it with our providers. Our providers are not required to share their speeds up and down, and there is federal regulation that's in the queue nationwide regarding that, which will really help. And I know some of the folks on this Zoom have helped participate in that. I'm like, how are you working from home with the speeds you have? So validating those speeds is critical. And I know that'll be a step that Eric and his team will take. So we've kind of started that laying up on that with some of our existing businesses, especially the ones that use broadband quite a bit. So does that help clarify the questions about the middle mile and kind of where our gaps are at this point?
I think it does. And it also brings up another question, though. I did recall that maybe those regulations changing to require the providers to prove that they're providing what they say they are providing. And so I wonder if that's not, again, maybe playing a bit of devil's advocate, is that really our biggest challenge in Lake County? And or if they aren't providing those speeds and that product, is infrastructure work required in order to provide that? Or is that really just I don't know, or is that something else?
No, there's subdivisions specifically in the county that don't have high-speed internet. So that's the concern. It was never laid. The deployment was never put out. So the broadband is not there. And there's parts in the city the same way. So that's the goal that SCEDD has, is to help us deploy that and help write the grants so the providers can have some additional funding to deploy it.
Let me jump in here and give you some realistic expectations of what we can do and when. We start with a baseline from 4 years ago with the Upper Aarp study that does have some very valuable data. I made a brief passing reference to a broadband implementation plan, and I wanted to flesh that out a little bit because part of that implementation plan is identifying those gaps and what is needed to bring you up. And just so we're clear on what bring you up means, that over the next 5 years, if you are in a rural area, you should have an expectation that you'll be able to get to 100 up and 100 down. If you're in a population area, you should be looking to get a gig up and down. That's the goal. And there's always going to be pockets where it doesn't work very well. And the satellite and wireless may be a good part of the solution. The more rural and the fewer people you have, fiber to the home is the solution where you can. So how do you get to that? If we get this in place and we have our money promised, we have to submit a grant to EDA by the end of September. And by the time that we see that money, and that is also tied to the DOLA grant, the DOLA grant is the money for a broadband implementation plan. So let's say we have a broadband coordinator hired by December 1st, maybe it's January 1st. They've got about 3 or 4 months to make the community connections before the EDA money comes in. And then we do the implementation plan study. So, and during those 3 or 4 months, we're not going to just ignore the opportunities that come to us. We'll be looking for grant funding opportunities and ways to bring things, but we're not going to have as good information as we're going to have through the spring. So sometime in the spring, I would think late spring, we would have a pretty good idea, a pretty good handle on what's needed throughout the 13 county region. And then from that point on, it's a matter of working the plan. You have the plan, you make the plan, and now you got to work it. I do want to clarify one thing is that when we're talking about a grant writer, we are not talking about a grant writer just for broadband. We're talking about a grant writer who will work on behalf of your water and sewer and your housing projects and everything else. And I had a conversation yesterday with Spike. I'm going to butcher his last name, but he's a commissioner from Backer County. And he says, well, are we going to get any attention? We're out here in Backer County. And if I'm Lake County, I would say, are we going to get any attention? You guys are at the end of the supply chains, right? And he said, what assurances do we have? And I said, well, grant writers are investments, they're not costs. If we run out of capacity for a single grant writer, we're going to hire a second one. And actually, we probably hire a grant administrator as the second hire, but so that the grant writer would be more productive. But we know that we've got a window of opportunity, minimum of 3 years, maximum of 7 years, to really bring rural Colorado up. And if Congress can get its act together and get an infrastructure bill on the president's desk, there's even more money available. And so we are the organization that has said, we'll take responsibility for this. We'll build the coalitions, we'll chase the money, and we'll act on behalf of our regional partners.
Commissioners, any questions or comments for Eric or Marla?
I don't think I have any questions specifically about the grant ask or any other requirements or anything like that, but I am curious about our process for the ARPA funds, if this is something that we would feel comfortable or confident voting on today, or if we want to group all of those requests together and then do them all at one time.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Oh, sorry. Commissioner Marcel, that's a great question. My preference is that we consider those all one, so that my thinking was we wouldn't vote on any individual request, that we get them all together and see how it looks as a package over the years we have to deploy the money, and that would kind of be one thread of our overall 2022 budget kind of discussion.
Yeah, and we will bow to your internal needs, but we have to show that we have support for the grant application that comes into the end of September. Okay. At the very least, we're going to need a pretty strong letter of intent. I would encourage you to go as far as you can to make it signed, sealed, and delivered, because we have this isn't in isolation. This is leveraging other dollars, and we're kind of stuck in that weird place. We have a draft resolution we can provide you as well, if that would be of help.
Eric, thanks, Eric. Commissioners, I do appreciate that as well, although I'm not, maybe I misunderstood you, Commissioner Fiedler, collecting requests over the next year, or do you mean collecting requests to determine for next year's budget through 2022?
I had, and I'm not saying I'm right or stuck in my ways on this, I just sort of had in my head that we would sort of over the next couple months of our 2022 budget process, that we would also be collecting requests and our own ideas for the use of ARP funds to deploy in 2022. I totally hear Eric's need.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm amending my thinking. I'm amending my thinking as we go.
Well, and I think we did have a work session together to highlight BOCC priorities for budgeting. And we also had a big question to Commissioner Marcella's point of, where ARP funds regulations and like criteria and eligibility ultimately land. If we, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, board, but my sense was we weren't going to allocate a lot or all or a majority of those funds because we weren't sure whether or not we'd actually have to be responsible for them out of the county budget. My sense on the SCEDD request and then just, seeing Jenny and the childcare is that these two priorities have been longstanding and aren't, I personally think I'd feel very comfortable justifying allocation to either of these requests, maybe outside a process that we have set up for those. But I just offer that. My other question to you, Eric, I thought I remembered it as a 1% request, not 1.5%. Was I just misremembering that?
You're remembering a very early version of this, that the 1.5 has been the number for about 4 or 5 months now.
Okay.
But we did make for the city of Pueblo is a 1% request. And part of that is they got a lot of money. And
yeah,
we're not asking any other municipality in the region. And we wanted to distinguish that between the county contributions and the city. And they actually have, in terms of what we can do for them, we don't have as much value to add as we do in the rural areas. So there's a little bit of a discount.
The other thing that I need clarity on, this is a 1.5% request in total of our ARP funds, or a 1.5% allocated each year through the next 3 years?
It's it's 1.5% of your total request. So what I've got from the website is that your allocation is 1,578,574, and that may not be the exact number, but that's what is on the publicly available website. So that would translate into $23,679. And it would be one time. One of the other things you may have seen, Sarah, is that some early versions of our discussion, we encourage counties not to spend all of their ARPA allocation until we had come back with the broadband implementation plan, and we suggested reserving an additional 10%. And honestly, that created more havoc in talking to commissioners than it created light. And so we've stopped talking about that. I can tell you that what I have done instead is just to keep making the point that we're building capacity here. We are not doing projects. We are setting ourselves up to be able to chase projects and to do projects. And I just don't want anybody to have any illusions that this $1.2 million is going to take care of a $100 million problem in the SCEDD region. It's not.
Yeah, well stated, and thanks for reiterating that. I think my ears definitely perked up when you highlighted that grant writer position would not just be for this, for broadband, but for all projects across SCEDD, because we are certainly working with some of your colleagues on other assistance in housing and whatnot. And I think that could be an incredible value for that amount that you're asking for.
Michael told the board yesterday, I mean, we're having trouble getting people across the line. It's like, yes, we want to, but it's like I said, I apologize, I'm not a better closer. I'm just there. And Michael is frustrated. He basically said, guys, we're bringing you a grant writer. I need the help. I'm a specialist in housing. We got all these other needs that the SCEDD has identified. I've got to have more help. And if you're not going to be in broadband, then maybe you go to the back of the line on grant writing. And that went over that didn't go over very well. The electeds in the room. And he said, well, I apologize for being blunt, but come on, we've got a lot of need in this region, and we have the capacity to chase the money that's once in a lifetime opportunities. And that's not just broadband. That's water, that's sewer, that's housing.
Yeah.
And the person that I've got my eye on, I don't know if you know Shelley Dunham. She was my predecessor at SCEDD. She's now the mayor's grant writer. Shelley and I both came from the same town in Northern Illinois. She went over to the city and she recruited me. And we found a third person from Northern Illinois that we want to bring out here. And we think that convincing somebody to relocate from South Dakota is not that hard, given where we live.
Commissioners, what are your thoughts? Do you sit on wanting to collect these, and in which case I think we maybe have a tighter turnaround. I don't know of other a laundry list of requests that we would anticipate coming to us. I did anticipate SCEDD and childcare support. What are your thoughts on the process? I think I'd be comfortable making a dedication for knowing that this would support a lot of other initiatives and priorities, but I'd like to hear from you guys.
Yeah, I'm comfortable doing that, given that it's not that larger percentage, compared to the 10% or other things, and totally agree that it's a known priority. So I'm comfortable. I also think, I do want to make sure that we sort of look at all the requests, because we have some other things penciled in there from our previous work session. You need to support housing, I think, especially, and that work. So I just want to make sure we're not over allocating, but I think this one is small enough that if we have a deadline, I'm okay voting on that today.
I agree with Commissioner Fiedler's sentiments.
Okay, happy to entertain a motion then. Eric, I don't know if you want us to, I'm just sorry, maybe getting into the weeds a little bit, but on that dollar amount, should we commit that dollar amount if for some reason Aarp funds and that criteria and allocation might change? I guess we can include, I should say, perhaps we should include the 1.5% request or whatever the motion, whatever is included in the motion made to the equivalent of, Eric, would you remind me that full number?
3,679. And you may have more accurate information than I do on what your allocation is, but that's what I found.
Maybe that's not important. I don't know.
Yeah, I can tell you that from the funder's point of view, I'm talking about DOLA and EDA, they're going to look at the dollar amount.
Right.
And so I guess putting my policy hat on, my political hat is, okay, what the worst that's going to happen, I think, and I don't think the worst is going to happen, is it's conceivable that an infrastructure bill could claw back some of your allocation, and you might not get the second this year. If that's the case, then 23,000 turns out to be 3% of your ARPA funds. But in terms of applying to the EDA, they're not going to total up our 1.5% commitments that are contingent. They're going to say, okay,
yep,
it's the dollar amount.
Okay.
So that's a little bit awkward to say, but that's the reality of the grantsmanship side of it.
Would anyone like to craft a motion?
I did not write down the dollar amount as it was spoken. So if you could repeat that for me.
23,679. Approximately.
Okay. So I'll make a motion that we approve the SCEDD request for the use of Lake County Aarp funds up to the amount of $23,679. for the use of the proposed broadband grant writing capacity.
Second. Any further discussion? Eric, will that work for you? And
Yes.
moving forward. Great.
We might want to memorialize it in a letter or something, but yes.
Okay. Yeah. I think
Yeah,
I need-
if you do have a draft resolution or a draft letter, I think you mentioned that, Eric, that would be great to see.
Okay.
And
That would be
Okay.
great. Thank you.
Commissioner Marcella, do you have any other discussion points? Just want to be sure that we're hearing you if you're trying to connect. Oh, there she goes. She fell off.
She put on the chat, I think that was a reference to this, but I don't know.
Oh, I think that was the last vote.
That was the last thing? Okay.
Yeah. Let's just give it a second and see if she can reconnect.
I think you got broadband up there.
What's that?
I
Yeah.
think you need some broadband up there.
I apologize, folks.
It's COVID, man. It's like every time I think about COVID, I think about the movie Chinatown. You remember at the end, they're trying to make Jake feel better, and he says, "Jake, it's Chinatown." And I keep thinking, Jake, it's COVID town. Whether it's we forget to mute, or the fact that we've forgotten how to have meetings together. Jake, it's COVID town.
I think our biggest challenge is going to be not being able to cram the schedule back to back to back if we actually have to fit in walking or moving or driving to meetings.
Yes, we've become so productive on Zoom.
All right. Let me try and call Kayla and see if there she is. Commissioner Marcella.
Sorry, I'm having technology issues today.
No problem. I just wanted to be sure that we heard from you in any further discussion that you might want to have on the motion for approval.
None from me. Thank you.
Okay, that was very slow. It sounded like you said none from me. Thank you. Hearing no further discussion, thanks. I see your chat. Then I'll take a vote. All those in favor, aye.
I
And I see Commissioner Marcella wrote aye in the chat. All right. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you. I enjoyed watching you guys work. I grew up, my father was the mayor of a town of 7,000. So in my teen years, I was attending city council meetings, so I was having flashbacks.
Well, we'll look for that letter of support. And if you want to send that to the board or Commissioner Marcella, as you know, being on the EDC, any of us, I can sign it from being the chair as well. But we'll look for that from you and look forward to updates.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. All right, now we have the request from Brightstart for ARP funds. I see we have Jenny Abbott here, and I don't know if Commissioner Marcella or Jenny just want to jump in there. Commissioner Marcella having technical difficulties. We might just go.
Yeah. Sarah, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. I will need to recuse myself on this matter as a BOCC member, as I'm the president of the Brightstart board. But I will let Jenny start with the request.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Kayla.
Welcome, Jenny.
Hello. I will keep it pretty short because we already sent you guys a pretty detailed letter. But to sum it up, we are trying to get reopened in the next couple of weeks here. And like any nonprofit, we always need funding. But right now, especially as we're trying to get started again in this really difficult time, we have some COVID specific needs and some needs that under the American Rescue Plan Act, we could appeal seemingly for some assistance. So to summarize it, we had requested a total of $204,000 and $500 of ARPA funding between now or whenever you guys are able to offer assistance and the end of calendar year 2024. That breaks down with close to $67,000 to cover 75 days of operation during COVID related shutdowns. So this was became very pertinent because a lot of families who go to Brightstart pay tuition to secure their month's worth of childcare. And then when there are COVID shutdowns, unlike the public school system where you are just sending your children to school without an upfront cost in addition to your tax dollars, obviously, these families have given Brightstart close to $900 for a month of childcare, and then they find themselves when there are shutdowns having to scramble and often pay other childcare providers if they're lucky enough to find them. So they really are ending up double paying. So we were seeking a way to keep keep the center operating and keep the teachers paid without having to tax the families for something that there's no benefit to them. Basically, they're just paying and then paying again to watch their children. It seems unfair, and it's difficult to get families to sign on to be consistent tuition income revenue generating families, knowing that this could happen to them. So this would help us with that, because we all know that COVID shutdowns are a regular part of life, unfortunately, these days. The next part was to improve compensation. So unfortunately, Brightstart right now is not able to compete with other childcare centers in the region and with the center, because we can't offer benefits or retirement without grossly increasing tuition, which again affects Lake County families directly. So I dug into the Federal Register just a bit. It was really interesting to read, and they are saying that American Rescue Plan Act funds are applicable to childcare providers because these folks take a great risk to themselves and to their families by going into a childcare center every day to work. We all know that germs are part of life in childcare centers anyway, but now we have a potentially deadly virus, potentially deadly to whoever it infects, that they are exposing themselves to. So it seemed that the American Rescue Plan Act funds could be applied to childcare providers as a way to recognize them for their sacrifice and keeping their communities going. So we had asked for $92,250 to offer improved compensation during that time between now and 2022, or whenever you guys are able to help out, if you're able to. And then finally, also related to the COVID shutdown, we all know that all workplaces experience absences these days, regular absences. And it would be easier for us to ensure our families that we're going to be able to keep going and keep complying with state mandated child to child care provider ratios if we have an additional employee who's just sort of our permanent substitute. This person, if everyone is healthy at any given time, this would just be an extra person on staff to help out with lowering that ratio, which improves outcomes for our children. So it's a great thing in that case, but I think more than likely they would be substituting in any classroom on any given day. And that just keeps our center open, because without those ratios being correct, we have to shut down. We've definitely experienced that in the past. And again, that goes directly into the Lake County workforce. If the daycare center shuts down, you have Lake County employees taking PTO and staying home to watch their kids. So another COVID consequence, unfortunately, that we were hoping that American Rescue Plan Act funds could help out with. I completely understand that you guys have a lot of other entities in town who would like to apply for these funds. We were just a bit early. I just happened to have a little bit extra time a couple of weeks ago, and that's just when I did it. That said, if you're willing to help us out now, we would be, with anything, we'd be really, really grateful, because we are trying to open up and recruit teachers right now within the next couple of weeks. So we will just graciously say thank you for anything that you are able to give. I understand that how this works, and if you can't give us anything at all, we understand that, but we definitely wanted to state our case for why we feel these funds might apply to us. So thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. Okay, so I'm sorry. I guess I'm looking for an update on like doors opening and whatnot. Can you give us that good news?
The good news is it's imminent. I can't give you an exact date because they came up on Tuesday and they had a really good positive inspection, but we're still waiting on some things to fall into place. For instance, signing a lease. The school board needs to meet next week to sign the lease, and then we'll have it. We can give it to state licensing. So like, that's just an example of like a handful of things that just need to fall into a line, and then they'll give us the open date. So I was told the 20th as the goal, and I do believe, myself included, there are a lot of parents really pushing for this and doing absolutely everything we can do to get those, cross those T's and dot those I's. And I believe that that's, if not the 20th, probably the 27th.
Okay. I love the request. I love the, this, as I stated in the last presentation, childcare has been a big topic and issue, and Brightstart has had its challenges with operating, and so I think that this is a completely appropriate request. I would happy to, make a justification to award funding to you all as I sit right now. I also think that, it would be nice for you all to stop chasing dollars necessarily, and, have some security in a couple of years or a few years of operation, so that you can really focus on the important pieces of providing those services. And I suspect, and maybe you could chime in a little bit more here, but as far as, the socio and family economics of having childcare would help with employment and the challenges of lack of finding employees, and or other related issues to parents needing to show up in various scenarios.
Yeah.
And circumstances.
I should also mention that we gave the exact same letter, pretty much verbatim, to the city. Mayor Lobby, I've spoken with him briefly. I don't know if you've had a chance to speak. We just weren't sure how to break that down. Or do we do half to each? But yeah, I just saw him pop on. If you want to speak to that, Mayor Lobby.
Well, no, and the commissioners, I had sent a note to the commissioners the other day saying it would be nice if we could sit down as a group, the commissioners and I, and look at, because yours will be one of a number of requests around housing, childcare, and food access, all of which were kind of COVID affected and are eligible under the American Rescue Plan Act. So I'm still okay with that, but I would say to this particular issue, I would just support what the county wants to do in this case. And I hate to put the ball in your court, Commissioners Mudge and Fiedler. But I'm good either way. Either we can sit down and go over these together, or if you make a decision around funding for any given one of them, and it is an ARPA funding, then we would be willing as a city to share then our proportional share of that, which according to the numbers I have right this second. I know ours is right. I'm not sure yours is right, but I show that we are at 32.3% of total ARPA. So that's just to give you some insights into approaches I'm interested in taking.
Commissioner Fiedler, do you have any questions or comments or proposals?
Well, just a quick clarification, Mayor, so that's like so 200,000 is like roughly 30% of your total ARP funding. I just missed that last 30%.
No. The funding, the total ARP funding, from what I can get off, various sites, is the cities was $720,871. The counties was $1,578,574. And so I show, if you combine those and then take, a proportional share, we're at 32.3%. And if we, as I said in my note the other day, if we kind of agree that this is in both of our best interests, which housing and childcare and food access certainly are, issues for the city and county, then that may be an approach we could take.
Okay, great. Thanks. Sorry for missing your point there. Yeah.
Any other?
Yeah, I can chime in. I was just pulling up some of our allocation numbers and like that spreadsheet we were working off before. I mean, I think I'm comfortable again, given the sort of urgency of the need to get Brightstart up and running, notwithstanding what I said before, looking over, I think this request was a known, talked about, priority. Yeah, and it's good to have a number to slot into that line item in our allocation spreadsheet. So I think, Sarah, we can talk about this right now, but I think this request isn't so big relative to our ARP allocation that it's gonna interfere with like housing and other needs that we're trying to slot in. So I'm comfortable moving ahead today. And Mayor, I appreciate your comments about, I think we had scheduled or we're looking at the 21st for a joint city county discussion. So we can take it up again there in terms of allocations, but.
Okay, that's great. I will, I'll put it on my handy dandy calendar.
We will get it on the agenda.
Commissioner Fiedler, do you have a proposal for how to word that, or as far as that 204? Jenny, are you asking for? Sorry, I think you did mention this, and I'm not remembering. Did you ask the city for the same amount, or is there a total number that you need?
That is the total number that I believe will get us through COVID. And so we wrote the exact same total to the city, and I just sort of crossed my fingers that you guys would come together and work it out somehow. So, but we also don't need all of this right now. I mean, this was over through calendar year 2024. So I think a handful to get us started. And then if you guys want to reevaluate in the context of everything, I mean, just do whatever you need to do, obviously, and we'll just be grateful for anything. How desperate does that sound?
Sarah, this is Kayla. Can I just add something just a little? I think it's really important too to recognize that, like, through the work that we've done with the Child Care Coalition, a lot of the work that we've done and research that we found in neighboring communities and other counties is that childcare itself is not a sustainable, business model, I guess, quote unquote, if you will. And so many communities rely on local governments to subsidize in some fashion so that the childcare is sustainable and stable for their community.
Thanks, Commissioner Marzella. Well, in that vein, Jenny, and knowing that we'll have this conversation with council and or the mayor coming up, I wonder if we, what do we think about perhaps dividing that, $204,000 request over the 4 years or 3 years, and looking at a motion to intend to allocate 70,000 annually, perhaps from the county. I think technically dividing 204,000 by the 3 years is $68,000. Dedicating with the intention of dedicating 70,000 annually, you know, contingent on continued ARP funding, and any other, I guess, agreements with other jurisdictions.
That would certainly work for us.
Yeah.
That would be greatly appreciated.
Sarah, how about if we frame it for now as no less than 50,000 contingent on future discussions, because that would be our 70%-ish share, and at least that gives some certainty of a you know, a
Commitment.
a floor is
Yep.
what I'm looking for, you know, and then, you know, if we frame it as no less than, there's some certainty there.
I think that sounds good. I like it. Mayor Labe, I see you unmuted.
Yeah, I think that's a great approach.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, I will make a motion that
Let's do it.
that we as Lake County commit to use ARP funds for Brightstart for the purposes outlined in the submitted proposal of no less than $50,000 per year out of our for the 3 years of the ARP funding window per year, just to be clear.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay.
Jenny, any other comments on that? Do you think?
No, thank you so much. We're really grateful. Just let me know what you need from us in terms of moving that forward, and I will make it happen.
Very good. Okay, Commissioner Fiedler, any other discussion?
No, good for me.
Excellent. Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Very good.
Hey, this is Greg. Thank you guys very much, and thanks, Jenny. I have to go to a 3 o'clock, which I'm already late for, but I really appreciate what you're doing. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, moving right along. Item 8, then we have a contract under consideration for Martin & Martin for the survey work on the Union Pacific property as the proposed site for the Justice Center. So this comes to us. We did do some preliminary survey work through our due diligence with Anderson Hollis. There was some clean title issues. There were parcels and parts of the area that were and were not included, as far as now kind of coming to a definitive offer or scope, I should say, from UP of what property would be we are talking about in that area. And so legal has brought to us the need to conduct a final valid survey, and this is part in process of our continued effort to negotiate with UP on the acquisition of that property for the Justice Center. Katie Welter or Chris Floyd, any other comments there? I really don't have any other questions for you. I see Commissioner Marcella had dropped off again and is reconnecting. Commissioner Fiedler, do you have any questions?
No, none for me. And I think we discussed this before, so I'm good to go.
All right, Commissioner Marcella, want to make sure you have an opportunity to chime in here with any questions or comments. We are on. Forgive me, I don't know if you dropped off before or after we entered into item 8 for the consideration of the contract to survey the UP property.
No, none for me at this time. This is pretty straightforward for me as well.
Excellent. All right, well, I'll entertain a motion to approve the survey work with Martin & Martin on the Union Pacific property proposed for as the site for the Justice Center.
So moved.
Second,
All right, any further discussion?
none for me.
Great.
None for me, thank you.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you so much.
Thank you, commissioners. We'll get the agreement finalized, and I believe the EEC, let me find it real quick here, for signature over to you. I can find it, if that's the version I think that we have for that. I'm trying to pull up the last version that I sent to you.
It was, oh. I don't have that, but, well, I don't have it pulled up on my screen.
Yeah.
But
I just want to make sure that it was revised in terms of, because and the reason I bring this up, sorry, was just that there was a change. The original survey was done under Anderson Hollis's contract. This one was proposed to be with the county in order to save some administrative fees with Anderson Hollis passing through the contract. So I'll confirm that and make sure that y'all have the right version for signature.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. All right. Great. We will, with that survey approved then, and thanks for making it to the meeting, Katie. Sorry, that was not exciting, but that's good news. All right, moving on to number 9, contract consideration with Conlin, Conlin Associates for continued work on the Crossroads Trail. This is updated scope of work as the board approved. Over the last several months, the Crossroads Trail, Mike Conlin gave an update on the Crossroads Trail this morning at the Lake County Open Space Initiative meeting. We have had significant work done down there and are really close to completion. The work will likely roll into 2022 with kind of lingering railing work to be done. CMC, we had some agreements on potential integration of the fabrication of that in curriculum, and Mike Conlin is not sure whether or not we are able to continue to rely on the receipt of that. And so that will be kind of one last piece to some of the ADA requirements, but we have met all of CDOT permitting, and this next scope of work is in the sum of $10,300 with that project management with Conlin Associates. Any questions or concerns from the board?
None from me.
Okay.
Sarah, none from me either, thank you.
Okay. All right. I'll entertain a motion then for the approval of the scope of work presented by Conlin Associates to continue the Crossroads Trail project.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion?
No, thank you.
All
None
right.
for me.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Great. Thank you so much. Okay. And finally, on our new business items, presentation of bids for cybersecurity project for the Northwest Regions and HCPF. Janine, I see you're here, our Human Services Director. We cannot hear you.
Yeah,
I
I
can
don't
hear
know
you.
if I can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could share the screen. I have just a one-page overview of who applied and our recommendation. Is that what
sure
you want to
can.
see?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So we received bids from 4 potential vendors for this project. It's a project that is funded by a grant from HCPF to assist counties with getting policies in place and becoming compliant with the requirements, the state requirements for cybersecurity. So it applies, while it applies to some of the programs such as Medicaid and food assistance and TANF, it really does apply to the entire staff as well. And a piece of that is having written policies for things like how do you manage your paper files? How do you manage encrypted emails? How are you backing up, logging out of your workstation, things like that. It's pretty involved. And many of the Northwest directors, there are 10 counties in our region, and they felt pretty overwhelmed by the project to different degrees. So we applied for a grant to, instead of all of us writing separate policies and doing this project separately, to just work on it together. And one of the components of our grant application was to have a contractor assist with writing the policies and then creating a training program for our counties. The vendors we heard from, very interestingly enough, 3 of them were out of state and 1 was within Colorado. Our final recommendation is to go with the vendors that come from Colorado. Ms. Spear and Ms. Grote have experience working in human services offices in local and small communities, and or working for a local county government in the IT capacity, and met the cap for the bid, the fiscal cap that we have based on the grant funding. So that's our proposal from staff. I will answer any questions that you might have.
How long is the project, Janine?
It
How long will
started
the development of the policies, take?
Yeah, that's a good question. The project technically started July 1 and it ends, funding ends June 30th, but we'll wrap it up in May, essentially. So it's a 12-month project, and it will begin just as soon as we start, we sign the contract with the vendor, and their work on policy development and developing the training projects will go through roughly January to February. And then our staff person, Kristen Logan, is the project manager, and she will be helping ensure that counties get the support that they need through the implementation of the policies and then delivery of the training. And she's also overseeing the contract work according to the work plan. So the grant pays for some of her time working on it, and it pays for the contractor. So it's roughly January, February, we hope to have most of the components of the work plan in place. And then the spring we'll be delivering the trainings.
Thanks, Janine. Any questions from Commissioner Fiedler or Marcella?
None from me. It sounds very straightforward and very well thought out and planned.
Yeah, I'll just second that. I don't have any questions. I just wanted to, it's great to have this summary, clean and concise as bids are brought before us. And I think the previous one for the HR also was done that way. So again, just thanks to everyone for getting stuff to us in a digestible, clear way.
Yeah, thank you. And then I'll echo Commissioner Marcella's comment. It's nice to see the coordination, as often happens in your world, Janine. A coordinated effort. And maybe you said this and I missed it, but will this, with your work, there's already, there are sensitive files and information in electronic form in general. With COVID, will this span that day-to-day office work of, you know, pre-COVID and also telework policies for everybody as well?
Yeah, we expect that. Yeah, we expect to include that. Although the cybersecurity list of requirements doesn't specify telework, I shouldn't say that. It does ask for things such as, what is your written policy about removal of files from the office, both electronic and hard copy files. So there are things that definitely apply. One of the things, for example, is, you know, they require that you have a safe method for electronic transfer. For a while, the state agency was requiring that we use an encrypted flash drive. When we purchased those encrypted flash drives, they weren't always compatible with the databases that were on the laptop. So we had to work and navigate that. But it does apply to some of those things for anything that is going to be off-site. And I think we will probably expand that, given the needs that have come up, to include things such as, you know, you have a locked box with hard copy files, you know, exactly what that looks like. And it can also include protocols that, and the difference is we may have those practices in place now, but we don't have a written policy about it.
Yeah.
And that's really what this will do, is sort of institutionalize that so that it can be consistent.
Great. Thanks, Janine. Okay, well, it doesn't sound like there's any other questions, although I see Chris unmuting here. Do you have a comment, Chris?
It just probably prematurely, since I didn't see any of the other information, just to find out if, in terms of the contract, if part of the package included any type of proposed contracts and stuff for this.
No, that was one of my next questions, is who do you want to draft? When we did this last year and we were the project managers for a statewide grant, we used a standard contract that I had been using, and I'm thinking you approved it too at that point. If there's a different form, or if you have your contract for services form you want us to use, the grant requires that we follow whatever our county procedures are.
Okay,
so,
that's what I figured. So yes, we can follow up offline on that. I was just making the comment so that if there was a proposed contract, that would be forwarded for review, and then we can get it put in place.
Yes,
great.
Correct.
Thanks.
All right. Well, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the award to Jerry Spear and Jennifer Grote for work with the Department of Human Services as proposed for cybersecurity and the Northwest Regions and HCPF, contingent on communications with legal and setting up the proper contracts.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any further discussion?
None from me, thank you.
None for me.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, great. Thanks so much, Janine.
No problem. Thank you.
Let's see. All right, next then, that concludes our new business items. Next we have reports, bills, minutes, and payroll. And we have, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the Veteran Service Officers Report for August 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
None from me, thank you.
None for me.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
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 All right, and then I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the bills and payroll for pay period ending August 27th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion?
No, thank you.
None for me.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
And I think that concludes our meeting, unless my fellow commissioners have something else to bring
No,
up.
I don't have anything else to point out. I just want to say thank you, Commissioner Mudge, for your patience with me today with my technology issues. I don't know what's happening with my phone and my computer, but I have no internet connectivity on my computer and just trying to bounce around and maintain service. So thank you very much for your patience.
Same to you. And it's torturous when you do have service trying to work off of your phone. So thanks to you and Paul for having to muddle through that, suffer through that. Commissioner Fiedler?
I'm all good.
All right. All right. Thanks everyone for participating. Very productive meeting. And at 3:18, we will adjourn.
Thank you.